The battlefield was covered in smoke and fire. Explosions echoed from every side. Shaking the ground, the air was hot, filled with the smell of burning metal and blood. Dead soldiers from different alien species lay scattered everywhere. Among them, a young alien girl named Lyra struggled to move. Her body was broken, her wings were torn, and her legs were weak. She tried to stand, but pain shot through her body. She fell again, her face pressing against the cold dirt. Lyra's eyes searched for her people, the Varkari. They were tall, strong, and proud warriors with shining armor, but they were nowhere to be seen. She had called for help, screamed in her language, but no one came. They had left her behind. Her people believed that only the strong deserved to live if anyone was injured. Weak or slow, they were left to die, and now Lyra was one of them, abandoned. She felt tears in her eyes, but she blinked them away. Crying would not help her now. Far away, hidden behind a broken tank, a human soldier watched the scene. His name was Carter, a battle-hardened Marine with scars on his face. He had seen the Varkari fight before. Ruthless and powerful, he had fought them many times. But when he saw the small alien girl crawling in pain, something felt wrong. She was no threat. She was just a girl, scared and broken. Carter raised his rifle, his finger ready on the trigger. But he didn't shoot. Something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she kept trying to stand, even when her body failed her. Maybe it was the look of betrayal on her face. He lowered his rifle slowly. The evacuation order had come through his comms. His team was already leaving the war zone, but Carter stood still, watching her. He remembered his own past. He remembered being left behind by his squad once, wounded and waiting to die. But he survived because someone came back for him. That memory burned in his heart. Could he leave her to die like that? Lyra coughed and tried to move again. Her hands shook, her wings useless. Suddenly, she heard footsteps. She turned her head slowly, her vision blurry. A shadow stood over her. She gasped. Expecting it to be an enemy soldier, she tried to crawl away, but her body refused to move. The shadow knelt down, and she saw a human face. His eyes were sharp, but his expression was not cruel. Carter looked at her closely. She was different from the other Varkari, younger, smaller, and her eyes showed fear, not pride. He spoke softly, his voice calm. "Can you hear me?" Lyra didn't understand his words, but his tone was gentle. She stared at him with wide eyes. Carter tapped his translator device. It buzzed and clicked, trying to understand her language. Finally, he spoke again, and the device translated. "Why are you still here? Why did they leave you?" Lyra's lips trembled, and she whispered, ... weak. "I am weak." Her answer hit Carter hard. Weakness was a death sentence for her kind. He looked around. The battlefield was silent now. Only fire and smoke remained. Carter knew he should leave. His team would think he was dead or gone rogue. But how could he walk away? He sighed deeply and made his decision. He pulled a small water pouch from his belt and offered it to her. Lyra hesitated, then took a small sip. Her throat burned, but the water helped. Carter gently checked her wounds. She winced in pain, but stayed still. "I need to move you," Carter said. She didn't understand, but she saw kindness in his eyes. He lifted her carefully. Her body was light, too light. Like she hadn't eaten in days, Carter carried her to a safer spot between broken walls. He set up a small camp with what little gear he had. The night would be dangerous. Beasts roamed the battlefield after dark. He built a small fire and stayed awake, watching over her. Lyra watched him, confused. Why would a human help her? They were enemies, but she felt safe near him for the first time since the battle. She didn't feel alone. In the distance, the stars shone brightly. Lyra looked up at the sky and whispered to herself, "Why? Why did you stay?" Carter didn't hear her words, but he saw the sadness in her eyes. He promised himself, "I'm not leaving you behind, not like they did." The battlefield was a place of death and betrayal, but under the stars, a small spark of hope was born, and neither of them knew that this was just the beginning of a story that would change both their lives forever. Carter sat near the small fire, watching the alien girl sleep. Her breathing was weak but steady. The battlefield was quiet now, but the silence was dangerous. Night creatures hunted in the dark, and drones sometimes scanned the ruins. Carter knew he was trapped between two deadly choices. If he stayed, he risked being hunted or killed. If he left, the girl would surely die alone, and deep inside, he knew he couldn't carry that weight on his soul. He whispered to himself, "Why am I doing this?" She was supposed to be the enemy, but when he looked at her, she was just a broken kid. She was barely surviving, left for dead by her own kind. The thought made his blood boil. How could they abandon one of their own like that? In the human army, no one was left behind. It was a rule, a promise. Carter still remembered the time he was saved when everyone thought he was dead. He owed that same mercy to someone else now. When morning came, the suns rose slowly over the battlefield. Carter checked the girl's condition. She opened her eyes weakly. Her voice was soft, barely a whisper. "Why? Why you stay?" She asked through the translator. Carter smiled slightly. "Because you deserve to live." "That's why," he answered. She stared at him, not understanding. Her people believed weakness was shame. Why would anyone help her? Carter decided to give her a name. He didn't know what her real name meant, but he called her Lyra. He said, "Your name is Lyra now." She repeated it softly. Lyra. It sounded strange but nice. For the first time, she felt like she had an identity beyond being weak. Carter knew he needed to find food. He couldn't stay in one place too long. He scouted the nearby wreckage, finding broken crates inside. He found emergency rations. Not much, but enough to keep them alive for a few days. He brought the food back and shared it with Lyra. She ate slowly, her body still hurting. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was getting stronger. Carter nodded. "You'll get better. I'll make sure of it." As days passed, Carter built a stronger shelter using metal scraps. He taught Lyra how to start a fire with simple tools. She watched closely, learning each step. Carter was surprised by how quickly she picked up human skills. She was curious, always asking about his tools, his gear, and even the stars. Carter told her stories about Earth, about the oceans, the forests. Lyra listened with wide eyes. Her world was full of war and strength, but she never imagined beauty like that. One afternoon, Lyra asked, "Why do you fight? Why not leave us?" Carter thought for a moment, "Because sometimes we fight to protect what we love." He said. She stayed quiet, thinking deeply. Her people fought only to conquer, to show power, but Carter fought to protect. It was a new idea for her. She wondered if there was another way to live besides war. But danger was still near. At night, Carter saw lights in the sky drones, searching for survivors. If they found Lyra, they would kill her for being weak. If the humans found her, they might kill her too. Carter made a promise. "I won't let them take you, Lyra. I'll find a way to get us out." Lyra's eyes shined with a mix of fear and hope. She believed him, even though her people never promised anything to the weak that night. Carter sent a secret message to his command. He didn't say everything, only that he was alive and needed extraction. He hid the truth about Lyra. He didn't trust them to understand. Until help arrived, they had to survive together. Carter trained Lyra each day, teaching her how to defend herself. She learned how to hold a knife, how to listen for danger. She was still weak, but stronger than before. Carter was impressed by her spirit. She never gave up, even when her body hurt. They had built something together, a friendship, a bond that crossed species and war, but Carter knew it wasn't enough. Sooner or later, someone would find them, and when that happened, they would have to fight to survive. Carter looked at Lyra one evening. Her eyes reflected the firelight. She wasn't just an abandoned alien girl anymore. She was his responsibility, his ally, and he would protect her with his life in the ruins of betrayal. Two enemies had become something more, but fate was watching, and their true test was yet to come. Morning came with a cold wind sweeping across the broken land. The sky was gray, and the air smelled of smoke and death. But inside the small shelter Carter had built, there was warmth. Lyra sat by the small fire, watching Carter as he cleaned. His rifle, She was healing slowly, but her body still ached. Her wings were wrapped in cloth Carter had torn from his own uniform. She touched them gently, feeling the pain, yet, for the first time, she was not alone. Carter caught her staring and gave her a small grin. "Pain means you're alive," he said with a chuckle. Lyra didn't fully understand the joke, but his laugh made her smile. She had never heard laughter that sounded so real. Her people didn't laugh like that. The Varkari believed emotions were weakness, yet here was a human, showing her kindness, humor, and patience. "Why do you laugh?" she asked softly through the translator. Carter shrugged. "'Cause sometimes laughter keeps us strong." Lyra tilted her head, thinking about his words. In her world, strength was measured by power and victory, but Carter showed a different strength, one built on kindness, on connection. She didn't understand it, but it fascinated her. Later that day, Carter took out a small metal object from his pack. It was a harmonica. Scratched and worn, he blew into it, making strange, soft music. Lyra's eyes widened in wonder. "What is that sound?" she asked. "It's music," Carter smiled. "Something humans play to feel alive." Lyra listened, her heart strangely touched by the melody. No one in her life ever made music. No one ever cared about feeling alive, only about being strong. When Carter stopped playing, Lyra asked, "Why help me? Why not leave like my people did?" Carter looked into her eyes, his face serious. "Because no one deserves to be left behind," he said. "Because I've been left behind once. I know how it feels." His voice carried a deep sadness. Lyra could feel the truth in his words. For the first time, she realized that humans could feel pain just like her. They were not just enemies. They were people. Slowly, they began to talk more. Lyra told Carter about the Varkari, how the weak were seen as failures, discarded without thought. How her own family had called her a burden. Carter listened silently, anger burning in his chest. He couldn't imagine abandoning family or friends just for being weak. Humans fought together, carried each other. Yes. That was their strength. And now, Lyra was becoming part of that strength. Each day, Carter taught her small survival skills. How to build a fire, how to listen for footsteps, how to sharpen a stick into a weapon. Lyra learned quickly, eager to prove she wasn't weak. She wanted to understand his world, his ways. Carter also asked her about the stars, about the alien worlds she had seen. Her stories were filled with wonder and sadness, worlds full of beauty, but ruled by cruelty. One night, while watching the stars, Lyra said, "Do you think I can be strong like you?" Carter smiled. "You're already strong, Lyra. Strength isn't about muscle or fighting. It's about not giving up. And you haven't given up yet." Her heart felt warm. No one had ever called her strong before, not her family, not her people. Only this human soldier believed in her. Their bond grew stronger with every passing day. They laughed sometimes, shared food, and even argued like old friends. Lyra began to heal, not just in body, but in spirit. She was no longer just the abandoned alien girl. She was Lyra, a survivor, a learner. And Carter was no longer just a human soldier. He was her protector, her teacher, maybe even her first real friend. But as the days passed, Carter grew more alert. He felt something in the air. A tension, a shadow that was getting closer. He didn't tell Lyra yet, but he knew the peace they had wouldn't last. The battlefield might be quiet, but someone or something was coming for them. And when that happened, the bond between them would be tested in fire, under the cold sky, by a dying fire. Two souls from different worlds sat together, bound not by blood or race, but by the simple truth that no one deserves to be left behind. And in that moment, they were no longer enemies. They were survivors. Together against the world, the nights had grown colder. The air carried a strange feeling. Something was wrong. Carter could feel it in his bones. The wind was too still. The usual sounds of night beasts were missing. It was the kind of silence that came before danger. He didn't tell Lyra, but he cleaned his rifle twice that night. Every instinct told him someone was coming. Lyra noticed his worry. "Something bad?" she asked in a soft voice, Carter nodded. I think your people are back. Lyra's face turned pale. She shook her head, fear rising in her chest. They don't come to save. They come to finish, she whispered. Her own people. The Varkari? They didn't leave witnesses when they abandoned the weak. If they returned, it was to erase all traces of failure that meant her. Carter looked into her eyes. We're not going to let that happen, he said firmly. She wanted to believe him, but how could they fight trained Varkari soldiers? Carter was just one man. She was still too weak, but Carter had a plan. He spent the whole day setting traps around the ruins, wires, hidden spikes, and explosives made from leftover grenades. Lyra watched him work. She wanted to help, but her body still ached. She hated feeling useless, yet Carter never showed frustration. Just stay safe, Lyra. That's your mission, he told her, but Lyra wasn't satisfied. She crawled to gather stones and sharpen sticks. She would fight. 2. She wouldn't let Carter protect her alone. As night fell, the sky burned red under twin moons. Then, in the distance, they heard footsteps, marching, steady, disciplined. The Varkari had come. Carter readied his rifle, hiding behind a broken wall. Lyra hid in the shadows. Clutching her sharpened stick, her hands trembled, but she refused to run. The first Varkari scout stepped into the ruins. He was tall, armored, eyes glowing in the dark. Carter waited, heart pounding, when the scout triggered a wire trap. Sharp explosion ripped the air. The scout screamed, falling to the ground. The others roared in anger. They knew someone was defending the girl. Carter fired the first shot. His aim precise. One Varkari fell, then another. But they were fast, moving like shadows. They fired back. Plasma bolts slicing the air. Carter dodged, his shoulder burning from a near miss. He gritted his teeth and kept firing. Lyra watched, her heart racing. She wanted to help, but fear held her frozen. Then one Varkari soldier found her hiding place. He raised his blade, eyes cold. Lyra screamed. Swinging her stick wildly, it barely hurt him, but before he could strike her, Carter appeared. He tackled the soldier, stabbing his knife deep into the alien's neck. The Varkari choked and fell, dead. Carter turned to Lyra. Run if you can. He yelled, but Lyra shook her head. No, I fight too, she cried. Carter smiled despite the chaos. That's the spirit, he said. Together they faced the attackers. Lyra picked up the fallen soldier's weapon. It was heavy, but she held it tight. When another Varkari came, she pulled the trigger. The shot was clumsy, but it hit. The enemy fell with a grunt. By the time the last Varkari fell, Carter was bleeding, his arm burned. He sat down heavily, breathing hard. Lyra ran. To him, you're hurt, she said, her voice shaking. I'm fine. We're both alive, that's what matters, Carter replied, smiling weakly. Lyra helped him back to the shelter. She tore cloth to bind his wounds. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. You saved me. Again, she whispered. Carter looked at her, his eyes tired but proud. No, Lyra, we saved each other. For the first time, she believed it. She wasn't weak anymore. She had fought even if she was afraid, and that made her stronger. The ruins were quiet again. But the air was heavy with blood and smoke. Carter knew more enemies would come. But Lyra had changed. She was no longer just a burden. She was a fighter now. Their bond was forged in battle. Warriors from different worlds, together they had survived the hunters, but the war was far from over. Their journey was just beginning. The battle was over, but the danger was not. Carter sat inside the ruined shelter, his arm bandaged, his face pale from pain. Lyra stayed close to him, her sharp eyes watching the shadows beyond the broken walls. She was different now, not the same weak alien girl who was once abandoned. She had fought, she had survived, but Carter knew survival wasn't enough. We can't stay here, Carter said, his voice low but firm. More will come, and next time, we won't be so lucky. Lyra's heart sank, but she understood. Where will we go? She asked. Carter thought hard, staring at the burnt horizon. He pulled out his comms device, its small screen flickering weakly. His earlier message to command had not been answered. If no help was coming, they had to make their own way out. There's an old human supply station about 20 kilometers north, Carter explained. If we reach there, I can boost a signal and call for extraction. Lyra nodded, but she looked at her broken wings and bruised body. I can't fly. I can't run fast, she said, her voice filled with frustration. Carter smiled faintly. Then we'll walk together. I'll carry you if I have to. Lyra felt a strange warmth inside. No one had ever offered to carry her. Her people would have left her to die. But this human, he refused to leave her behind. She made a silent promise to herself she would not slow him down. Before dawn, Carter prepared supplies. He crafted a crude spear for Lyra and made sure his rifle had at least some rounds left. He wrapped his wounded arm tightly, ignoring the pain. Lyra helped. Her hands gentle, but determined. You're not like the others, she told him. Carter raised an eyebrow. Other humans? Lyra shook her head. No, not just humans. Everyone. You're different. They set off before the twin suns could rise too high. The land was harsh, filled with craters and smoking wreckage. Sometimes the wind carried strange sounds, metal groaning. Distant engines. They moved slowly, Carter limping but refusing to stop. Lyra stayed close, her spear ready. She kept her ears sharp. Every sound could be danger. As they walked, Lyra asked about Earth. What is your home like? She whispered. Carter smiled, though his face was tired. Earth is blue and green. It has oceans. Forests, mountains. It's beautiful, Lyra. Not like this place. Lyra listened with wonder. She had never seen oceans or forests, only battlefields, training camps, and the cold eyes of her people. Will I see Earth one day? She asked shyly. Carter chuckled. Yeah, if we survive this mess, I'll take you there. His words gave her hope. For the first time, she dreamed of something beyond war, a life beyond weakness, a place where no one would abandon her. But the path was not easy. Halfway through their journey, they heard the hum of drones. Carter cursed under his breath. Pulling Lyra into a hollow crater, 2 patrol drones flew overhead, scanning the ground with red lights. If they were caught, it would mean death or capture. Lyra's heart raced. She held her breath, trying not to make a sound. Carter gripped his rifle, ready to shoot if necessary. But the drones passed without noticing still. Carter knew they didn't have much time. The enemy would know someone survived the ambush, and they would send hunters again. We need to move faster, Carter said. His tone urgent. Lyra nodded, pushing her tired body forward. She refused to be a burden. Not anymore. Finally, as the sky darkened, they saw the shadow of the old human supply station. It was a broken metal tower surrounded by ruined walls, but it was their only hope. Carter led Lyra inside carefully. Dust filled the air. Wires hung loose from the ceilings, but in the center, an old comms terminal stood half buried in rubble. Carter wiped the dust off and checked the device. It's damaged, but I can fix it, he muttered. Lyra watched as he worked, his hands steady, despite his injuries. She sat nearby, feeling both hope and fear. Will they come for us? She asked. If I can get this working, yes, Carter replied. But we have to hold this place until they do. Lyra stood up, her spear in hand. Then I will fight too, she said firmly. Carter looked at her and smiled. You're not weak. Lyra, don't ever believe that again. Together, they prepared for the worst. Setting traps around the station, securing the doors, they had each other. And now, they had a plan. But as the night grew darker, distant sounds of engines echoed in the wind. Someone was coming, and the final test of their bond and their strength was about to begin. Night had swallowed the sky. The old supply station stood like a lonely skeleton against the stars. Inside, Carter worked hard to repair the old comms terminal. Wires sparked under his hands. The screen flickered with every touch. Lyra stood by the broken doorway, her spear in hand. She watched the horizon where faint lights moved. Someone was coming, and they weren't friendly. Suddenly, the comms device beeped weakly. A signal barely stable, but enough. Carter's eyes lit up. I got it. A distress beacon is broadcasting, he whispered. If we're lucky, humans will pick it up soon. Lyra smiled faintly, but her smile faded when she heard distant engines. Multiple, closing fast. Carter stood up and grabbed his rifle. They're here, he said. Lyra's heart pounded, but she nodded, ready to fight. Moments later, shadows appeared beyond the ruins. Humanoid shapes, armored, carrying plasma weapons. But they weren't Varkari, they were human soldiers. Another squad. But when they saw Lyra, their weapons instantly pointed at her. One of them shouted, "Drop the alien! Step away!" Carter raised his hands, standing between them and Lyra. "She's with me, she's not a threat," he shouted back. But the soldiers didn't lower their guns. "She's the enemy. You're protecting the enemy." Their leader snapped. Carter's heart sank. He knew this would happen to them. Lyra was just another alien, a danger to be eliminated. Lyra looked at Carter, her eyes full of fear. "Go, I'll surrender. It won't kill you if you leave me," she whispered. But Carter shook his head, his face hard and determined. "Not happening," he said. Then louder he yelled, "If you want her, you'll have to shoot me first." The human squad hesitated, their fingers on the triggers. The tension was sharp, like a blade ready to fall. Their commander stepped forward, his voice cold. "You're protecting an enemy. That's treason." Carter's grip on his rifle tightened. "She's not an enemy. She's a survivor. She was abandoned by her own. She fought beside me. She saved my life." But they didn't care. Orders were orders, and aliens were the enemy. Then, without warning, another voice crackled through the soldiers' cums. "Hold your fire." It was a commanding officer from orbit. They had picked up Carter's distress signal. "Let's hear the full situation first," the voice ordered. The squad paused. But their guns stayed up. Carter breathed hard, sweat running down his face. He had bought time. But they were still one wrong move from being killed. He explained everything over the cums, how he found Lyra abandoned, how she was left for dead, how she fought to survive, how she saved him. There was silence on the other side of the cums for a long moment. Then the voice replied, "Stand down. Both of you," the commander ordered the squad. "We'll take them both for debriefing. The alien is what you say." She lived. The soldiers lowered their weapons, but their eyes were cold. Carter didn't care. Turned to Lyra, who was still trembling. "We made it, Lyra. We're going home," he whispered. She looked at him, confused. I have no home," she said softly. Carter smiled gently. "You do now? I'll make sure of it." The extraction ship landed near the station. Lights shining like a beacon in the dark, Carter helped Lyra walk, supporting her weight as they approached the ship. Lyra looked at the sky for the first time. She felt hope that maybe. She wasn't just an abandoned alien girl. She was more, but deep inside. Both of them knew this wasn't the end. Once they reached the human base, more questions would come. More tests, more eyes watching her like a threat. Carter silently promised, no matter what, he would protect her. Because strength wasn't just about guns or battles. Sometimes real strength was choosing not to leave someone behind, even when the whole world told you to. And so, under the cold, watchful stars, a human soldier and an alien girl stood together. Not as enemies, but as something stronger. A team, a bond, a family. The ship carried them through the dark sky. Carter sat beside Lyra, his body still aching. But his mind alert, Lyra stared out of the window, watching stars fly past. She had never seen this view before. She had never left the battlefield. Now, she was heading somewhere new, somewhere unknown. They arrived at the human space station. Cold, metallic, and guarded. As soon as they stepped off the ship, soldiers surrounded them. Doctors rushed in, scanning Carter's wounds. But when they looked at Lyra, their expressions changed. She was watched like a dangerous animal. Whispers spread. Quickly, an alien among humans. Some looked curious, others disgusted. Lyra felt their stares like sharp blades cutting her skin. She clung closer to Carter, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. "I don't belong here," she whispered. But Carter placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You belong with me, he said softly. I don't care what they think. You're not alone. Days passed and doctors examined Lyra. Scientists asked endless questions about her species, her abilities, her memories. She answered quietly. Unsure if speaking would help her or doom her, Carter stayed by her side through it all. When officials suggested keeping Lyra in a research lab, Carter stood up. No. She stays with me, he declared. She's not some lab subject. She's a person. At first, they refused. But Carter was persistent. He reminded them of all. His years of service, his sacrifices. Eventually, they agreed under strict conditions. Lyra would stay in the station's civilian quarters. Under supervision, but Carter had to take full responsibility. He didn't hesitate. I'll take that. Responsibility, he said. I gave her my word. Living on the station wasn't easy for Lyra. Every hallway, every room was filled with humans staring at her strange features, her wings, her alien skin. Some were afraid of her. Others whispered insults, but a few smiled, curious and kind. Slowly, Lyra learned the human language properly. Carter taught her, patiently correcting her words. She was a fast learner. She wanted to understand. She wanted to be more than the girl left behind. One day, Carter brought her to the observation deck. Large windows showed the planet Earth in the distance, blue, green, alive. Lyra pressed her hands against the glass, her eyes wide. It's beautiful, she whispered. Carter smiled. Told you so. Lyra looked at him, her eyes soft. You kept your promise, she said. You didn't leave me. Carter chuckled. I keep my promises. You're part of the family now. The word family was strange to her, but she liked it. She wasn't weak anymore. She wasn't abandoned. She had Carter, and through him, she found strength she never knew existed over time. Others on the station began to see her differently. Some saw the courage in her. Others saw the kindness she carried despite her past. She helped in the med bay, learning to heal others. She trained with Carter, becoming stronger, faster, smarter, no longer the girl left to die.
Ow.
She was the alien girl who survived, the one who stood with a human soldier against fate itself. And though the universe remained a dangerous place, Lyra was no longer afraid, because she had a new life, a new family, and a friend who proved that humanity wasn't about blood or species. It was about the courage to stand together when no one else would. Beneath the endless stars, Lyra smiled for the first time without pain. She was not just a survivor. She was home.